Joining us now, Corey Lewandowski, former campaign manager, Trump for President campaign, engineering the most improbable nomination victory of all time, 2016. Corey, also the author now of 2 books, Let Trump Be Trump, the best book written on the actual campaign. And now the deep state exposed Trump's enemies. It's a week before Christmas. Buy the book, put it under the tree. Somebody in your family, in fact, they're going to be fighting over it, right, when you put it under there. So I would buy several of them. Give them to your key people, especially for the people who are coming over for the holidays. All you got to do is go to your favorite bookstore, go to Amazon. Trump's enemies, Corey Lewandowski and David Bossie. And Corey joining us. Corey, Merry Christmas. Great to have you.
I hope you're well.
Never better. Boy, there's a lot going on. Where do we start? Let's start with the 17 investigations now being launched on the president, from his taxes to Stormy Daniels, to the National Enquirer, to whatever else is out there, Russian collusion, which doesn't exist. And now, what else? They're looking at the inauguration committee, and they're looking for, how many times he took his tie to get cleaned or something. What is going, when does this end, if ever?
Well, look, John, it's never going to end because the Democrats have no vision for our country. So their only plan is to attack this president, to put him under an investigation. And what I believe will happen is they will overreach. Not too dissimilar, actually, to what the Republicans did during the Bill Clinton years, where the American people just got tired of all the investigations, and it really allowed Bill Clinton to get a second term in office, even though he had committed a series of things where the House of Representatives was investigating him and ultimately impeached him. I think what the Democrats are going to do is they're going to overreach. They're going to overplay their hand, because Nancy Pelosi, if you can believe this, is not the most progressive member of her caucus. And she's going to be forced into a position where they continue to investigate things that Donald Trump or Trump people around him that has nothing to do with the election might have made some mistakes, and it will ultimately backfire because the American people just want a good economy. They want homeland security. They want border security, and the Democrats have no plan to achieve any of those things.
Well, look, that played out, though, for them in the midterms, Corey. They picked up, I guess, what it looks like 39 or 40 seats now, and they had no plan either. Basically, their plan was Trump sucks. That was it. It got him the House majority in the midterms. I look at 2020, Trump's on the ballot, another 2 years of, cannon fire subpoenas, no agenda, no wall. I think we're going to win in 2020, reelect Trump, and I think we're going to win the House back.
Look, here's the thing, John. Let's just be very clear. We have some things that we need to accomplish still, because when the president is on the ballot, his record is on the ballot. And what that means is the promises that he made are the promises he has to keep, including building the wall. There is no other way around that. We have to get that done. And if Congress does not want to give Donald Trump the $5 billion he's fighting for to provide national security for our country, and they're only going to give him $1.6 billion, I saw the president last week. I said, let's find a different way to do it. Go to the military, ask the military to do it. Remember, when Barack Obama came into the administration, they had a program, John. It was called Cash for Clunkers. You remember this?
Oh, God, yes.
$3 billion the government invested to take cars and literally throw them in the trash. We literally took $3 billion and threw it in the trash. And you're telling me we can't find $3 billion to secure our border from enemies, both foreign and domestic? It doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, Corey, we have a $4 trillion annual budget, a $1 trillion annual deficit. That's adding to the national debt. And the difference between what the Democrats have offered, $1.6 billion, what the president wants, $5 billion, is $3.4 billion. That represents, just to put this in perspective, 1/8 of 1% of the entire federal budget. 1/8 of 1%. We're arguing over an absurdly ridiculous amount of money based on the scope of the thing, right?
Well, yes, look, it's so small. Look, I'm not a math major, and I went to public school, so I'll take your word for what those numbers are, right? But here's what I know. I hate to say it. In the parlance of government, $3 billion is not a lot of money when it comes to securing our borders. Can you imagine, just for 1 second, we literally found $3 billion to throw away at buying people's cars that were junk and trashing them so that we could stimulate the economy, and we can't find $3 billion to prevent people from coming into our country illegally? The bottom line is the Democrats do not and will not give this president a win on this issue. They don't want to. They don't want to solve the problem. They want to continue to politicize it, and they don't even want to take care of the people who are in this country illegally because the president tried that too. That's not their solution. Their solution is politics, politics, politics. Let's keep talking about this regardless of if our country is safe and secure.
Well, look, no question. We got to get to 60 votes either way in the Senate. We've got a government shutdown, Corey Lewandowski, facing us down on Friday. The president says, look, I don't really care who gets blamed. I'm going to do the right thing for the American people. I'm going to shut the government down. Here's the issue, though, Corey. It's a few days before Christmas, and the way the law is written, the non-essential agencies, if they've got vacation time, they're going to have to show up to work, which means canceling flights to see loved ones. This turns into a PR disaster. What should the president do now?
Well, I'll tell you, if we're going to shut down the government, okay, we had better have a solution of what it means to open the government. Right? And what I mean by that is, hey, if we're going to shut down the government and it affects 30% of the government workforce, because that's really what it is, and it's going to be over the holiday period, and I don't think as many people are going to be impacted as the media wants to talk about. But what is the win for reopening the government? Because you and I are both certain that neither Nancy Pelosi or Chuck Schumer are going to give the president what he asked for, which is the money for the wall. So if we're shutting down the government to get the money for the wall, and they're not going to give it to us, then what is our solution? And I'll tell you what I think the solution is. We go to the military budget, which is fully funded. We have the military that we're paying for. Go down and build the wall on the southern border. We can take the $1.6 billion that they're giving us for the border construction wall, and we'll take $3 billion out of the military budget, and we'll put $4.6 billion to work right now. Our men and women who are sworn to protect our country anyways will be happy to go down there and build the wall, and then we'll get our problem solved. That's what we're talking about doing here. But closing the government without a solution to move forward, I don't see the value.
I don't either. We are in total strategic agreement with that. That doesn't make any sense. So if you take that solution, which kind of Stephen Miller, the president's one of his advisors and chief speech writer, went on the Sunday talk shows and said, look, we can find the money in other areas. We are going to build $5 billion worth of this wall at least. Why not just do that now and go forward?
Look, and I really think that's where this is going, John, to be honest with you. What we saw last week from the president in the Oval Office was his conversation with Nancy and Chuck, and what he said, I'll take responsibility when it comes to protecting Americans. And you heard what Nancy Pelosi said, let's shut the cameras off, let's have a different conversation. They don't want to have this conversation. And so, look, the government has money in all these pockets. There is money that has been already allocated that is just sitting there in so many different government agencies. So what we need to do is we need to find the money in a $4 trillion budget. And by the way, we now have Mick Mulvaney, who has overseen the Office of Management and Budget, basically the auditing arm of the U.S. government, serving as the acting chief of staff. I am fully confident Mick knows where the money is and that we can take $3 or more billion entity and put that in place.
Okay, so there it is. We're with Corey Lewandowski, former campaign manager, Donald Trump for Corey, also the author of two great books, one on the campaign, Let Trump Beat Trump, and now his most recent book, very, very apropos right now with all these investigations going on, Trump's Enemies, B. Dalton, Amazon, or you can go to my website, and there's an ad for it. You just click on it, take you right to the link. That's the easiest thing to do. JohnFredericksRadio.com. All kinds of ways to buy Corey's book. Put it under the tree, but it's a must-read. I had a chance to read it last weekend. It's going to put chills up your spine. All right, Corey, let's get to Chief of Staff Mike Mulvaney got chosen. I thought Dave Bossie would have been a good choice. Any way here for Bossie maybe to be Deputy Chief of Staff, or is that kind of gone by the wayside?
Well, look, I'll be very clear. I haven't spoken to Mick. I was with the president on Friday of last week. I spent 2.5 hours with him. We had a number of conversations. After we left the White House, Dave Bossie was with me. He then named Mick as the acting chief of staff. And it is a necessary thing. There was so much uncertainty of what was going to happen because John Kelly is leaving the building on January 2nd that the president needed somebody to come in an acting role. And I think, like every chief of Mick is going to make an evaluation of which staff should stay, which staff should go, who he needs to bring in, and what they need to do in order to make this president be successful, because the next 2 years in that building are very critical. And so I won't say there is never a chance, but, Dave is going to have to decide if Mick calls him, is that something he wants to do? And the president's going to have to decide, is Mick going to stay in that role in a permanent basis, or is he going to bring somebody else in? And so I think you're going to see some additional staff changes throughout the administration and throughout the cabinet. But I also think, John, that, in our book, Let Trump Be Trump, we talked about how I think you should manage the president, which is play to his best instincts. He has amazing political instincts. Let him do those things. And then in Trump's enemies, which is our other book, we talk about the people who refuse to do that, who try and keep him from the American people, which is the wrong way to go. So he needs a chief of staff, whether that's Mick Mulvaney or somebody else, that's going to allow Trump to be himself, but also surround him with people who actually want to see him be successful. Because for the first 2 years of this administration, and we write about it in the book, he's been surrounded by people who don't want to see him be successful.
So going forward, he named Mulvaney basically acting chief of staff, which means that it can be changed, right? He's got certainty, but it can be changed. What about the statement that Mulvaney made back during the nomination process where he said, or during the general election where he said, yeah, I'm going to vote for him, but I think he said he was just a bad human being. How does Mulvaney reconcile that?
Look, I think a lot of people said things about then Mr. Trump, then candidate Trump, and now they've come to join the team. Let me give you an example. Nikki Haley campaigned very hard against candidate Trump in South Carolina.
Right.
She supported Marco Rubio. As soon as she joined the administration, she has been a good team player, a great team player, moving the president's agenda at the United Nations. Mike Pompeo, when he was a congressman and we were out campaigning in Kansas, he was against then Mr. Trump because he was supporting Ted Cruz. But the second he was named as the Director of Central Intelligence and now as our Secretary of State, he has been a phenomenal asset. And I can tell you this, I know Mick Mulvaney. I know what the work that he has done. Not only has he been the director of the Office of Management and Budget, but he also had a temporary position overseeing the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau after they got rid of the previous guy, and he has been someone who's on the president's team. So look, those battles that take place before and the things that are said before you come in all get put by the wayside as soon as you join the team. Because, John, the difference is some of the guys who were on the team were still saying those things when they were working in the building, and Mick has never done that.
Right. Well, you're right. I mean, he joined the administration, came on board. Look, there wasn't a bigger critic in the campaign of Nikki Haley than I was in all facets of media. I did. And, she joined the administration and served it with honor. So, yes, people can change. I mean, people say things during a campaign. Look, during the Bush-Reagan campaign of 1980, George H., bless his heart, bless his soul, called Reagan's policies voodoo economics, right? That ended up being his running mate. All right, we're with Corey Lewandowski. He is also, along with being an author of the new book, Trump's Enemies, that you have to buy for Christmas because it's going to make the hair stand up on your back. He's also a senior advisor to the Great American Committee. Go to greatamericacommittee.com. That's Vice President Mike Pence's hard money cap. He's a senior advisor there. Corey, let's talk about Ryan Zinke resigning, ramifications and all of that.
Look, I know Secretary Zinke well. In full disclosure, I saw him last week. I had a nice conversation with him. When you look at individuals who choose to serve in our government, really, they come one of two ways. They either are very wealthy, the Wilbur Rosses of the world, the Stephen Mnuchins of the world, Linda McMahon, who are serving in the cabinet and have almost unlimited resources, Betsy DeVos. Then you look at Ryan Zinke, who served his country as a Navy SEAL, the commander of the Navy SEALs, by the way, not just a regular Navy SEAL, commander of SEAL Team 6, put his life on the line for our country, got elected to Congress, and then was asked to come and serve as a Secretary of Interior, knowing that the Democrats, their only job now, their only thing that they want to do is investigate people and drive them to bankruptcy. Ryan Zinke has decided to leave the administration so that he can have the resources, if that were to happen, financially, to pay the attorneys which are necessary. And that's a sad state of affairs, because I'm a big fan of Secretary Zinke. I've known him when he was a congressman. I know his wife. I thought he's done a very good job at the Department of Interior, and it's shameful that he has to leave for the threat of what is coming from the Democrats, because he doesn't want to end up bankrupt because of the subpoenas and the oversight that they're going to put on him unjustly.
Corey, isn't this a trend though now? I mean, with the special counsel and everything going on, is the Democrats just, all they have to do is start an investigation. And if it's anybody without means, they bankrupt them and drive them out of office.
Well, look at Mike Flynn. Okay, Mike Flynn is a classic example. This is a man who basically had to go bankrupt because he had to pay all the attorney bills. I'll tell you, John, it really gives people pause of making the decision to go into the government. And that's a sad state of affairs, because when we're not getting the best people there because of the concern of the oversight costs of attorneys, it is a disservice not just to this administration but to the American people. And look, there are a lot of people who don't want to work inside the government now that the Democrats have taken over, for fear of reprisal and cost, both personally and professionally, to themselves and their bank accounts. And, guys like me, look, I'm a working class guy, John. I am certain that Swalwell and Schiff and those guys will use their power of the subpoena to come after me for things that I have never done anything wrong on, but they don't care, because that's how they play the game. And look, honestly, John, it's on both sides. Let's not kid ourselves, right? But it's unbelievable what it does to people who incur hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal bills. Or millions or more. Look, there has to be a better way to do it, because this is just unsustainable for people who want to serve in the government but literally can't afford to do it.
Well, you can't afford to do it out of fear, and even for a person like yourself that simply is an effective advocate and advisor, informal advisor of the president on the outside, because you're for the president, they're going to find a way to come after you, just like they come after anybody in the media that is for the president. But you're right. I mean, taking a job in the administration is becoming more difficult to do, especially for anybody that served in the campaign, because they know they're going to get hit with subpoenas. They got to get law. Want to deal with that.
John, look, not only is it not fair, it's very difficult on the families. Look, Ryan Zinke, who is a career military man, doesn't have, $20 million to sit there and say, hey, I'll bring a team of attorneys to fight these bogus charges or subpoenas or oversight things. When you're sitting there, even if you've done nothing wrong. Michael Flynn is a classic example. The FBI refused to tell him that he was a target of an investigation, so they told him he didn't need an attorney. He never had his Miranda rights read to him. And what happened was, now, some say, that he ultimately lied to the FBI, although the agents who he was speaking with don't believe he ever did. But it doesn't matter. Mike Flynn has now pled to a felony. He's being sentenced, and all because they were dishonest and he didn't think he needed an attorney with him, because Mike didn't necessarily have the resources to have one there. And that's a sad, sad state of affairs.
Unbelievable. Corey Lewandowski, we're out of time. I want to thank you for this time and sharing that insight, Corey, with our listening audience. Thank you so much. Spot on. As always, Corey Lewandowski, Merry Christmas. And Corey, I've got to tell you, I read your book because, look, I had heard pieces of it and seen pieces of it. But last weekend, cover to cover, I read the thing. And I got to tell my audience, you have got to buy this thing because it is more and worse than you think it is when you read this. Plus, your interview with the president is a classic, worth it just on that. Let Trump Be. Trump was his first book. Now Trump's Enemies. B. Dalton, Amazon, anywhere, or just go to our website. Got an ad for it there. Click on it, take you to the link. Corey, love to Allison and your family. I'll talk to you next week. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Merry Christmas to everybody. Thank you.